Hi, Julie, reading from Grimm's Fairy Tales again. I'm trying to read from Grimm's Fairy Tales again. Today's a little bit different. Today I ask that you don't have your kids listening. I'm reading from the original Grimm's Fairy Tales. These are not brought up to today's politically correct terms. I've been working pretty much since morning to find a politically correct Grimm fairy tales, and I've gone through 12 stories. Okay, let me just give you a rundown. Again, I ask that your children are not here, please. Some of the stories I have gone through, I even had to take notes. Cat and mouse in partnership. Well, everybody gets eaten, and they did not get eaten nicely. I thought, well, okay, not going to read that one to the kids. The Goose Girl. Main character is a horse, Falada. They end up cutting its head off, sticking it on the wall. The horse's head keeps talking. It's really an ugly story. Okay, let's bypass that one. It's not for kids. The Adventures of Chanticleer and Partlet. The third section, it's even entitled How Chanticleer Dies of Grief and How Partlet Died. It's depressing. Okay, let's go on. Rapunzel. How can you go wrong with Rapunzel, right? Well, you got to remember, these are the originals that I'm reading from. Well, the king's son jumps from the tower at one point. He ends up being blinded and he wanders for years. It's not a kid-friendly story. Okay, so I bypassed Rapunzel, sadly. Fundevogel. I'd not even heard of Fundevogel. But in Fundevogel, there's a cook/witch that tries to boil the kids in a pot of water. It's not a kid-friendly story. It's not a people-friendly story. It's not a nice story. We bypassed that. The Valiant Little Tailor. Everybody knows the Valiant Little Tailor. That's the one where the main character makes the little sign, says, I killed 7 in one hit, and everybody thinks he's a giant killer. He is the most arrogant, meanest. That is it's a horrible story. I won't even read it to you. It's a horrible story. Okay, Grimm's fairy tales, the word Grimm, it is synonymous with the word grim. It's ugly and everything awful in our society now. It's a grim. Okay, I guess I never put 2 and 2 together. Grimm? Definitely grim. Okay, I got Hansel and Gretel. You could pull it right out of today's headlines on child abuse. There is no way I could read Hansel and Gretel. It's the saddest story. It's just, there is no way I can read that to anybody. It's awful. There's no way. Okay, the mouse, the bird, and the sausage. Okay, think about it. The mouse, the bird, the sausage. Okay, everybody gets eaten up. Not nicely. It's an awful story. The brothers Grimm, they were. Okay, Mother Holly. I'd never heard of Mother Holly. It contained Cinderella. I thought, oh, Cinderella. Oh, it's depressing. It's depressing. Thank goodness for Disney. Anyway, can't go there. Won't go there. Little Red Riding Hood. They eat people. They take their knives and they slash open the wolves. Oh my goodness, it's an ugly story. It's just an ugly story. The Robber Bridegroom. I thought, maybe he steals things. No, they're cannibals. Okay. I found a story. There's nothing wonderful about it. There's no redeeming qualities, no moral to the story. but I have to read a story because I like to read. I found a story for you. It's not for your child. Okay, I'll calm down. Breathe in, breathe out, Julie. My story today that I'm going to read to you, I'm not going to read it to your child, please. It's called Clever Gretel. I'm hoping tomorrow, by the way, to find a fun story. Hopefully I won't have to go through 12 of them. Again, get back to the story, Julie. Clever Gretel. There was once a cook named Gretel who wore shoes with red heels. When she walked out on them, she turned herself this way, and she turned herself that way. And she was quite happy and thought, "Oh, you certainly are a pretty girl." And when she came home, she drank. And in her gladness of heart, she had a draught of wine, and wine excites her of heart. And she liked to eat. And she tasted the best of whatever she was cooking until she was satisfied. And she'd said, "Oh, the cook must know what food tastes like." It came to pass that the master one day said to her, "Gretel, a guest is coming this evening. Prepare 2 fowls very daintily." "I will see to it, master," answered Gretel. She killed those 2 fowls and scalded them and plucked them and put them on a spit, and towards evening set them before the fire that they might roast. The fowls began to turn brown and were nearly ready, but the guest had not yet arrived. Then Gretel called out to her master, "If the guest does not come, I will take the fowls away from the fire. But, oh, it would be a sin and a shame if they're not eaten the moment they're at their juiciest." The master said, "I will run myself and fetch the guest." When the master had turned his back, Gretel laid the spit with the fowls on one side and thought, "Standing so long by the fire there makes one sweat and thirsty. Who knows when they will come? Meanwhile, I'll run to the cellar. I'll take a drink." So she ran down, got herself a jug. "Ah, God bless it for you, Gretel." And she took a good drink and thought that wine should flow on and should not be interrupted, and took yet another hearty draught. Then she went and put the fowls down again to the fire, basted them, and drove the spit merrily around. As the roast meat smelt so very good, Gretel thought, "Something might be wrong. It ought to be tasted." She touched it with her finger and said, "Ah, how good the fowls are. Certainly is a shame that they're not eaten at the right time." She ran to the window to see if the master was not coming with his guest. She saw no one and went back to the fowls and thought, "One of the wings is burning. I ought to take it off and eat it." So she cut it off and she ate it. Oh, she enjoyed it. And when she had done so, she thought, "Oh, the other must go down too, or else the master will observe that something is missing." So when the 2 wings were eaten, she went and she looked for her master, and she didn't see him. Suddenly occurred to her, who knows, they're perhaps not coming at all. Maybe they turned in somewhere. And then she said, "Well, Gretel, enjoy yourself. 1 fowl has been cut in 2. Go take a drink and eat it up entirely. When it's eaten, you'll have some peace. Why should God's good gifts go to spoil?" So she ran into the cellar again, and she took an enormous drink and ate up a chicken whole with great glee. When one of the chickens was swallowed down, and still her master had not come, Gretel looked at the other and said, "Well, what one is, the other should be likewise. Well, the 2 go together. What's right for one is right for the other. I think if I were to take another drink, it would do me no harm." So she took another hearty drink and let the second chicken follow with the first. While she was making the most of it, her master came and cried, "Hurry up, Gretel! The guest is coming directly after me." "Yes, sir, I will serve it up soon, sir," answered Gretel. Meanwhile, the master looked to see if the table was properly laid, and he took the great knife whereon he was going to carve the chickens, and he sharpened it on the steps. Presently the guest came and knocked politely and courteously at the door. Gretel ran and looked to see who was there, and when she saw the guest, she put her fingers to her lips and shh, shh, shh. "Go away as quickly as you can. If my master catches you here, it'll be the worse for you. He certainly did ask you to supper, but his intention is to cut off your ears. Just listen. He's sharpening the knife for you now." Well, the guests did hear the knife being sharpened and hurried down the steps as fast as they could. Gretel was not idle. She went screaming to her master and cried, "Well, you've invited a fine guest." Why, Gretel? What do you mean by that?" "Well, yes," she said. "He just took your chickens and ran off. They took the dish and ran away with them." "Well, that's a nice trick," said the master. He lamented his fine chickens. "If they'd left me just but one, then I'd have something to eat." He called after for them to stop, but the guest pretended not to hear. He ran after with the knife still in his hand, crying, "Well, just one," meaning for the guest should leave him but just one chicken, not take both. Well, the guest, however, thought no otherwise, but that they should give up both of his ears, or just one, and ran as if the fire were burning under him in order to take both with him. Okay, that's all they wrote. The Brothers Grimm, and that's after I got through, that's story number 13 for today. Okay, I'll do my homework and see if I can find a child-friendly story for tomorrow. I did have fun reading, and I learned a lot about the Brothers Grimm. Have a good, wonderful day, what's left of it, and we'll see you again. God bless. Bye-bye.